Today's sutta is from Sutta Discovery, Volume 30, Sutta number 10, Dhammaññū Sutta. Now you can say here Dhammaññū is made with the word Dhamma plus ññū, which becomes new. There's a double N here because of the joining up of this vowel and this noun here. So actually it's one word without a hyphen, just to help you know the separate words. The ññū means to know, so one who knows the Dhamma. The discourse on the one who knows the Dhamma. So how do we know the Dhamma? In other words, how do we practice the Dhamma with understanding and wisdom? Now this is from A. Anguttara, chapter 7, the book of 7, Sutta 64. So there are 7 items here. Now the Burmese, BE is Burmese edition. The number is slightly different because Anguttara, you have many suttas. Sometimes the different tradition, they split up the suttas in different ways. So the Burmese edition is 7.68. Here I follow the Pali Text Society numbering, but I put this Burmese edition for convenience for cross-references. In case people ask you, what is this sutta about? The theme here, the qualities of a true individual. How do you practice to be a truly happy person, in other words? All right, let's go straight into the sutta. It's quite direct, but there are 7 items here. Page 218. Further down, someone. Right, here we are. Dhamma-ññū Sutta, Discourse on the one who knows the Dhamma, A 7.64. Here in the Anguttara, the words Ewang me sutang, that's have I heard, usually only is given only at the very start of the chapter. And in the other suttas, they would just make a short note. This is originating in Savatthi. Savatthi Nidanam. In other words, the Buddha was in Savatthi and he gave this teaching there. Bhikshus, monks, a monk who is accomplished in 7 qualities is worthy of offerings, worthy of hospitality, worthy of gifts, worthy of salutation with lotus palms, a supreme field of merit for the world. All right, notice here, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 qualities. These are the qualities of the true Sangha, especially the noble Sangha. So here, for someone to be truly Sangha worthy, to be a true monk, you must have 7 qualities. Also for lay people, all right, this word monk here, I mean, includes anyone who's listening to the suttas. So in the case of lay people, we do have, in a sense, these qualities also in a lesser way. And it's always wonderful to have such people who are Sangha-like, and it's a blessing to listen to them, to know the Dhamma, and so on. So this refers to every one of us at our own level of practice. Then the Buddha goes on to say, what are the 7? So here you find it's a typical oral tradition. The list is given first, and then the Buddha would elaborate on each of them. So here you are. These are the 7. Here, bhikshus, the monk, knows the Dhamma. Right, here the Pali word is Dhammaññū. Right, this is how you pronounce it. The first N goes to the front, Dhammaññū. Okay. Here Dharma means teaching, the teaching, one who knows the teaching. Next we have Attaññū. Now look at the words first. In Pali, they're so beautiful. Attaññū, then Attaññū. Okay, but here there is no H, so it's pronounced simply as Attaññū. Here is Attaññū. Okay, the meaning is different. Attaññū, atta means meaning, purpose. Notice in Pali, atta has got 2 important senses, meaning as well as purpose. So you can see that the 2 words are interconnected. Attaññū, one who knows himself, knows the self. Okay. Mattaññū, There's a bit of rhyming here, right? Mattanyū, one who knows moderation. Very easy to remember. There's an M here. Moderation has an M here also. Mattanyū. Mattanyū means measure. One who knows his measure. Moderation. Then there is Kalanyū. Right? You have to make sure every letter is pronounced, right? Kalanyū. Ña, this is just like the Spanish ña. Okay. One who knows the time, kala, time, or timeliness of things, when to say the right thing and so on. Then there is Parisanyū. Parisa means company, people, group, parisa. One who knows society, knows other people. Now the last one is a bit long. You have Pugalanyu, one who knows the individual, right? So in contrast to Parisa here, which is a group, this is the individual. Or a longer word is Pugala Parowaranyu. The meaning is the same. One who knows the differences in the individual, in individual's character, in other words. All right. Okay. Now, the sutta doesn't actually give elaboration like a psychology book, how each of these must be done. Maybe the commentaries might sometimes do this. This, in other words, here, the list is given, and then the Buddha will elaborate in his teachings. The teacher is supposed to elaborate this for you in a way which is suitable for the audience and in keeping with the time. So now, after this is the syllabus, and each of these will be given in detail. So number one here, the one who knows Dharma. So who is the one who knows Dharma? Let's look at this. Let's push this up a bit, please. Up. Yes, that's right. And how bhikshus is among one who knows the Dharma, someone who is Dhamma-ññū. Now here we have what I call the 9 limbs of the teacher's teachings. He knows the Dhamma in its 9 aspects. Here is how we look at the Pali Canon in the different categories of teachings. Of course, the early suttas, as you know, they evolved slowly as the Buddha taught over the years. There were more and more teachings, and then the teachings got organized into these 9, at least of 9 kinds of teachings. Now, first of all, of course, we have the best known item, the sutta itself. Sutta are the teachings themselves. They have a kind of a beginning, and there's a main topic, and then the Buddha talks about it. It can be a story. It can be very long, or it can be just a short one. Okay, so these are the suttas, a kind of miscellaneous collection of teachings, which are very important, which are the most common kind of texts that we have in the Pali Canon or in early Buddhism. Now, the second kind is called Geya. I have translated here as songs. In fact, the word Geya means something like it is to be sung. Of course, monks don't sing, but they recite it, and it's regarded as singing. It's kind of almost poetic, because it has also some prose in it. Prose plus verses. It's called Geya. Now notice there is a verses themselves here, Gatha. So Geya are verses, prose and verses, whereas Gatha are only verses. So in the first chapter of the Samyutta, you find it's called Sagata Vagga. All they're also called suttas there, but they are also called Gatha. So sutta is a kind of general term for all the teachings collected. But when you look at the way the structure of that sutta, you can call it Geya if they have prose and verse, Vyakarana. These are expositions, they explain certain things in detail. This word Vyakarana later on in more modern times has come to mean grammar. In Thai, they pronounce in the Sanskrit way, Vyakon. In Thai, it means grammar. Okay, so there's a Pali Vyakon, okay, or Vyakon Pali. That's the Pali language. Okay, so and we're in the sutta Vyakarana expositions, the deeper explanations. Gatha are the verses. They're kind of spoken in a very beautiful way, in a poetic way. And then the commentaries will give the explanations. And then you have the Udana. Udana are special occasions where the Buddha would say something with great joy, usually pointing out to a monk meditating or some very wonderful occasion. So these are inspired utterances. They've been translated as verses of uplift in the Pali Text Society edition. Now then you have a very special collection, Iti Vuttaka, the sayings. Iti means thus, Vuttaka spoken, thus spoken. This is one collection compiled by a laywoman, a hunchback, in fact, who was a servant of the Queen Samawati. And she was sent by the queen to listen to the Buddha. So she go back and forth to the monastery and then come back to the palace and teach it to the queen and 500 maidens. So she, in this going back and forth, listening to the Dhamma, she becomes a stream winner in the end. And she remembers these teachings, and her teachings are collected into this Iti Vuttaka. They're also very short collections. They're often paired with Udana, which are also very short teachings based on verses. Both of these, Udana and Iti Vuttaka, they have key verses plus background stories. Then you have the Jatakas. Now the canonical Jatakas, the Pali Jatakas, they're only verses. The series of verses, thousands of verses, the birth stories. They're related by the Buddha and by the monks later on. The stories are recorded in commentaries. And many of these stories are already popular those days. And what the Buddha and the monks did was they used these stories in an amazing way, showing how the Buddha practiced various qualities in the past. And these stories are beautiful and appealing for everyone. The Indians love stories. We all love stories today. The stories begin with very simple ones, one verse, two verses, three verses, and so on up to I think 50 verses or more. And the last 10 are classics, very long stories, very beautiful stories. And some of these stories even kind of influence other literature in Asia. And then they went to Arabia and so on, and then went to the West. And some of these stories are very similar to Aesop's fables, with animals talking, even trees talking. So these are stories that children will love, and these are very good ways of teaching children basic Dharma, basic wonderful, wholesome qualities. So these are the Jataka stories. So the stories are in the commentary. The stories are commentarial, only the verses are canonical. And then you have a special group of suttas. They're called Abhuta Dharma, extraordinary marvels. These are stories of the Buddha's birth and various miracles that he performs, very extraordinary things, in other words. And then they are explained, the significance is given, and so on. Okay. And then the last one is the Vedala, catechisms. Many of these are done by monks. The monks will be talking to each other. They're like radio shows. So it's a kind of question and answer. We did one of these Mahavedala Sutta before this. Okay, so these are the 9 kinds of teachings, right? So we study all these things, and if you do master all these various teachings, then you're said to be one who knows the Dhamma. But in fact, even if you just study one of these to begin with, you are beginning to know the Dhamma. You start there. You don't have to know everything, but somewhere you begin somewhere, right? Okay, now we go further down, number 2, I think. The one who knows the meaning. So we should not only know the text, the Dhamma as text, that's what number 1 means. We should also know what it is about. We should understand not only the meaning, but also the purpose. Meaning and purpose, they go together. Notice in English, you only have like meaning and purpose, two different words. But in Pali, one word, atta, has both these senses. So you can see how difficult it is sometimes to translate such a word into English. So one way around this problem is to use what is called an amplified translation. Now, this is an amplified translation. The basic meaning is meaning, right, atta. And then there's another meaning, which is hidden, but it is important, the purpose. So you can take them as either one or both together. And how bhikshus is among one who knows the meaning and purpose. So here bhikshus among knows the meaning or purpose of this and that statement. Thus, this is the meaning of this statement. This is the meaning of that statement. So now here, this is the oral tradition. Repetition, we can be quite tedious for a modern audience like us, but I'm going to just read through this once and show you the style of oral tradition. Remember, those days there are no books, everyone is listening, so repetition is very important. This is the meaning of the statement, this is the meaning of that statement. He will not be called who knows Dhamma. So here, if he does not know this, right? And then here, but bhikshus, because he knows the meaning of this or that statement, thus, this is the meaning of this statement, this is the meaning of that statement, therefore he is called one who knows the meaning. Thus, he is one who knows the Dhamma, who knows the meaning. Now, because we are trained in the scribal tradition, the reading tradition, we think this kind of arrangement is tedious and boring and so on. And very often modern translators are trying to simplify everything, make it interesting. Well, that's fine. It helps some people to kind of, catch the idea. But always remember, this is the way the Dhamma has been preserved so that it is clear and exact, almost like a legal document. Now, if you simplify it, and what happens in the future? People are going to simplify it again, and people are going to add things to it. Then you get a different sutta. You end up getting strange teachings, right? So this is one way of preserving the sutta as it is, as it was taught. But when you teach about it, of course, you can speak freely about it, but always base yourself on this basic teaching. So one who knows the meaning and purpose of the Dhamma, what is this teaching about? What is it for, right? So when we study, for example, the Sigala Vada Sutta, we're supposed to live where the Buddha says, okay, you're not supposed to do this, you should do that. Why? So that we can live happily in this life as lay people, as lay Buddhists, and practice the Dharma so that we can gain the path in this life too, something like that. All right, then we're going to the next one, number 3 here, one who knows himself, right? And how bhikshus is a monk who knows himself, Atta-ññū. Here, bhikshus, a monk knows himself sagaciously. The simple word is wisely. Thus, to this extent do I have faith, moral virtue, learning, charity. Right, so here we have 1, 2, 3, 4 qualities which we should cultivate, right? First of all, faith. Now, there was a time when I was a young Buddhist, a young boy. Those days, we were very much troubled by, Christian teachers, preachers, and so on. So we say, oh, we should not use the word faith. Why? Because the Christians talk about faith. Now, that's a wrong attitude. Faith is important in Buddhism, saddha, but it is a positive faith. It is a sense of learning something and you know it is right and you feel good about it. That is Buddhist faith. Faith has no religion, right? Faith is that feeling you have inside you, that goodness you have inside you. So this confidence you have in what is true, right? So you start there. You start where you are able to connect, where you're able to stay happy. That's your faith. And you feel joyful about it. That's your faith. It is my faith in the Dharma, in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha that has kept me going for 20 years to do this translation work, which is not easy, which is very difficult. And as I grow old, although my mind is clear, but the body is not so strong. I cannot spend a long time I used to when I was younger and so on, but there is that faith to go on, to do it, even if we slow down. So faith keeps us going in this way. Then there is moral virtue, sila. Moral virtue means keeping your body healthy in a physical sense as well as in a mental sense as well, in a psychological sense, in a spiritual sense. First precept is against killing. In other words, to keep your life, keep yourself alive and healthy, and to help keep other people alive and healthy also. So that's the first precept. Then the second precept is not to take the not given. In other words, to respect people's hard work so that they can be rich of the funds and means of supporting themselves. Then there is the third precept, respect for other people's body, such the precept against sexual misconduct. Then there is the fourth is the precept against lying, against falsehood. That is the precept of truth, so that whatever we have done so far, precept 1, 2, 3, all the 5 precepts, in fact, are true. They're based on meaning and good meaning and good purpose. And the 5th precept is not to be drunken, not to be intoxicated, so that we are mindful and we can grow as individuals. So to what extent do I keep my precepts? To what extent do I keep myself healthy, bodily, mentally, psychologically, and spiritually? That's moral virtue. And learning is a very important aspect of us as humans. If you don't learn, then people will take advantage of you. You have to listen to what others say, and you follow others like a herd. That's how people get cheated and conned and so on. So here learning means you find out for yourself what to do, what not to do, and so on. And of course, your learning means you study the suttas, you study Dhamma, and you practice it. So this is number 3, practice number 3. Now the last one is charity. Notice this is placed last, right? We learn the Dhamma, but we also helpful and kind to others. It's a very important aspect of the Buddhist life. Friendliness, helpfulness. We are willing and ready to our best ability to respond with kindness to others as much as we can to help others so that they too are happy. And then we have this community of happy people living together, inspired by the Dhamma, right? Then the sutta goes on and says, those who do not have this, that they will not be called one who knows himself. And those who have these qualities, they're said to be one who knows himself. So to know yourself, you must know faith, moral virtue, learning, charity. Okay? All right, now it is 5 to 9 now. I'm going to take a short break. Please come back at 9 so we can continue to finish this short, happy sutta. Now, the fourth thing that we must know so that we know the Dhamma, we grow in the Dhamma. And number 4 is one who knows moderation. And how bhikshus is a monk who knows moderation, Mata-ññū. Now here, the Buddha talks about the 4 supports of a monk in a slightly different way, building on it. Okay. Now, here bhikshus, a monk knows moderation in accepting robes, alms, food, lodging, and medicine support and necessities for the sick. All right. So this is basically what the early monks had allowed for themselves. they're allowed to receive robes, but then again, at the most 3 robes. So here, moderation means that they're happy with whatever robe they have. Whatever kind of robe they have, they're happy, right? And then there is alms food again. They go on alms round in the morning, having their meals before noon. They're happy with whatever alms food they receive, whether little or much. Then lodging, that means wherever they go, they're quite happy to stay, of course, in a safe place, say under a tree, in a cave. Of course, there are rules here. For example, you don't just go into a cave and live there. For example, the forest monk will tell you, you carefully go in with a stick. The stick is not to beat up animals, but is to like tap the ground and warn animals. You see, because even snakes, when they sense this vibration, they will go away. See, so you have to check out the place and so on. Some monks are even happy living in the open air, for example. And then medicine support and necessities for the sick here. The early monks only had cattle urine. It is quite a funny situation here. So I imagine this monk getting some urine, probably ask some of this cowherd to get it for them. Then they will put it in a bowl and seal it. And I think they bury it, from what I understand, when I was in Thailand. They will bury this urine for a while until it ferments. So they use the fermented urine, kind of ammonia, if you like. So they're happy with these things. Of course, later on, the Buddha allowed the monks to use what I call extra gains given by faithful people. For us lay people here, the meaning is learning to be contented, starting with what we have and then going from there, in other words. Okay. So this is like an ideal situation. This is what the monks do. So we can learn something from this. So this is called moderation, living a simple life, because the monks have renounced the world, and they're supposed to own nothing, and whatever they need, they will receive daily, and then they meditate to gain awakening in this life, and to be bridges for the Dharma to continue, so that you and I today benefit the teaching. All right. So so the monks who live in moderation help to not only transmit the teaching, but also to transmit the practice. Right. So this is for the one who knows moderation. Number 5, the one who knows timeliness. And how bhikshus is the monk who knows the time, or who knows timeliness, kala-ññū. Here bhikshus, a monk knows the time thus. This is the time for recitation. Okay, here, Pali, ayankalo, this time, or this is the time, udesasa. Now, interesting thing about Pali and many Indian languages, you don't see the verb here. It's understood, it's embedded, hoti in this case. Ayankalo, okay, this time for study, right? You know, the interesting thing, even in Malay, you have this kind of situation. You don't see the verb. It is inherent, okay? So this time means this is the time. Ude sasa, notice sasa here, this is the showing that this is what you do, something in that direction. Udesa is learning. Udesasa, for learning, okay? Time for learning. So udesasa can mean recitation. It also can mean study, learning. All right, because that's how the monks in the ancient times learned, by reciting. Even when I was in Thailand in the monastic days, I would hear these monks reciting the verses so that they can remember how to recite it, and they learn in that way, the traditional way. And now they're learning in the modern way also, in an analytical way. And then another important thing to know about time is the time for questioning. There are times to ask questions. Paripucha, puchaya, here pucha means for questioning. Okay. This is the time for meditation. Here the Pali is yoga, yogasa, for yoga, for yoking yourself to the Dhamma. So you find among Vipassana practitioners, they use the word yogi because they want to stress the idea that they should meditate. Okay, so I've translated yoga here as meditation, okay? Connecting with the Dhamma through the mind, meditation. And the last one is very beautiful. Is know the time for solitude, know the time for patisalana, okay? A time for yourself. You know, the moment we get up in the morning, we go to work, especially if you're a working person, you find you don't really have time for yourself. You're always there for others. And that's why we need a holiday. Yeah? So you take some time off for retreats. Some people today are missing. They tell me they can't come because they're going for retreats, right? So that's because they go into solitude for themselves. They practice for themselves. We always remember this. We have to practice so that we are at peace with ourselves too. So we have time to know the Dhamma. We have time for all this practice. All right. So next one. Number 6. Let's go down, but yes. Okay, here. And how bhikshus is a monk who knows society, the group, parisaññū. Here, bhikshus among knows society or the group in this way. Thus, okay, how does he know? Let's go down a bit more. So this monk who is wise, he knows this is an assembly of nobles, Katiya Parisa. This is the assembly of priests, Ayang Brahmana Parisa, Brahmins. This is an assembly of householders, Grahapati Parisa. This is an assembly of recluses, Ayang Samana Parisa. Now, what's interesting here is that although 4 groups are mentioned, they are not 4 castes. See, the castes are, you have this, the Katiya are the prominent castes in Central India in the Buddhist time, and then the Brahmins, Brahmana, and then you have the Vaisyas, who are the merchants, especially the rich merchants, and you have the Sudras, who are the workers. Apparently, in the early times, only the first 3 groups, the Katiya, the Kshatriya, the Brahmanas, and the Vaishyas, only they can listen to the Vedas, for example. But in Buddhism, they're all welcome to become monks. So the Vaisyas are not mentioned as a group. Apparently, they will be included in Grahapati, because as a group, it's unlikely that they would gather because they're all busy doing their own businesses. So they will be put under Grahapati, in other words, householders. And so this is one important group, growing group in India in the Buddhist time, who are not renunciants, who are living household lives. Then you have those who are not living the household life. These are the samanas or sramanas in Sanskrit, the recluses, right? Those who renounce the world. So these are the 4 groups. So here, the Buddha, in other words, when he is with this group, he knows how to behave, how to conduct himself, how to teach them. There is another list where the Buddha knows various kinds of beings, even, the Brahmas and then the Devas and so on. Even Mara, when the Buddha meets Mara, he knows what to do. So this basically is to be confident, to stand before the crowd, and not in defiance, but rather with confidence, with calm, with peace, and you're able to connect with the crowd, so you can teach them Dharma, or at least keep them peaceful, something like that. But you're not someone who enjoys the crowd. The Buddhist monks or Buddha is normally lives away from crowds. The idea is to be alone and happy, or alone with those who want to be happy. Now, if you look at early Buddhist cosmology, it's like a pyramid where the bottom is really huge. That means a very big crowd there. And the lowest level of this cosmic vacuum are the hells. The hells are really crowded and really filled with beings, with little space to move. Can you imagine how difficult and troubling that is? Those are the hells, very crowded. Then as you go up higher, there's more space. Right? It comes to a point where it's like you're happy, you're this wonderful point of light, and there's a lot of space around you. So heaven is a spacious situation where you live happily. So that's one way of looking at the nature of crowds and solitude in terms of mental peace. All right. So here the Buddha knows these groups of people. He knows how to. Here you are. It says here one should approach them in this manner, right? How to go up to them. One should stand in this manner. One should act in this manner. One should sit in this manner. One should talk in this manner. One should remain silent in this manner. So these are basically communication skills. We know just how to do all this in the company of others. Why is this important? Because we are teaching Buddhism, we're teaching Dharma, so we should know these basic skills of connecting with people. In other words, knowing how to present ourselves, knowing how to talk, and when to be silent, right? So there you are. This is one area we need to learn in terms of becoming a good teacher. Okay, so then the next part are all the same. The ending part saying if you don't have these qualities, then you cannot be called one skill in this and so on. And then you have the last one, number 7, one who knows individuals. Let's go up some of this. Yeah. And how bhikshus is a monk who knows individuals? Pugalanyu, or one who knows one individual from another and knows the different qualities in an individual. Further down, go down some of these. Right. So here bhikshus among those people by way of 2 kinds. There are 2 kinds of people. One who wishes to see the noble ones and one who does not. The one who does not wish to see the noble ones is to be censured for that reason. The one who wishes to see the noble ones, for that reason, is to be praised. Here, the noble ones, of course, are the stream winners, ones returners, non-returners, arahats, to see the good teachers, to learn the Dharma. And if you don't see teachers, you don't learn. So this is basically keeping good company. All right. Then there are 2 kinds of people who wish to see the noble ones. So here 2 more categories, two more subcategories. The one who wants to hear the true Dharma and the one who does not, right? So number 1 is the good one. Number 2 is not good. Here, there are people who want to see the Buddha, for example, but they just go there to talk, to treat the Buddha like a friend, and then that's it. Whereas those who go to the Buddha to learn the Dhamma, that's the right way. They wish to hear the Dhamma. Then, not only to hear the Dhamma, you see here, the whole sentence, the whole structure here, the whole paragraph here kind of repeats with one keyword change. And they not only hear Dhamma, but they listen with an attentive ear. So it's not just, kind of let things come in and come out, and you forget about it. But here you pay attention to what is being taught. And then the other person is not attentive. That is not a good quality. Then number 4, this person knows how to remember. The person makes an effort to remember the teaching. Right? How do you remember the teaching? By asking questions, by asking for repetition. Okay. So then you remember the Dhamma. Then after remembering the Dhamma, you examine the meaning. Examine the meaning of the Dhamma that you have remembered. And in other words, reflect on it. And when you reflect on it, what do? You practice it. One who practices the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma. Notice this qualification, the Dhamma in accordance with the Dhamma. You do not kind of, dilute it or change it. You practice the Dhamma as it is taught, clearly, faithfully. Okay. And then number 7, Let's go down now, the last page. Further down, yeah. So here, one who practices for both his own benefit and that of others. So when you practice, you don't just keep it for yourself. Why is this important? Now the Brahmins, they do just that. They know the Vedas, but they make sure no one else touch the Vedas. Only they master the Vedas, so everyone have to come to them. So they're not missionary at all. But Buddhism, the Buddha was radical in the sense that he opened up the teaching for everyone, not only for the Buddha's benefit, but also benefit of others. So the Dhamma is like that. It's for our own benefit, and we teach to benefit others. Now, the interesting thing is you don't have to say, okay, I'm going to teach you Buddhism and I'm going to benefit you. You don't have to say that. You just teach kindness, goodness, showing yourself to be a joyful and kind person. That's the meaning of benefiting others. By being kind to them. And through your kindness, you teach them Dhamma. And later they'll be wondering, what's all this? I say, well, this is Dhamma. And then they find, okay, they also want to learn, they want to teach. That's how you benefit both yourself, both his own benefit and that of others. There you are. I see this is underlined here. For both his own benefit, that of others. So there you are. These are the 7 qualities. And you have all these 7 qualities, then you are worthy of offerings, hospitality, gifts, salutation with the lotus palms, the Anjali, a supreme field of merit for the world, especially as a monk. All right, so the sutta ends here. You have 10 minutes for questions.
Thank you, Piya, for the teaching. Now we have our Q&A. Anybody would like to ask question? You can unmute yourself, or you can type the question in the chat box. Thank you. Please turn on your videos also for better interaction. Thank you.
I have a question,
Yes,
Sister Ratna.
Please.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, on the point that where a monk knows society. So, Brother Piya, you did mention like confidence and peacefulness and calmness. Can you speak a little bit more on that point? Where I'm coming from is that that point seems more like that of social etiquette, how to basically present yourself in different settings. But I
Yeah.
feel that this is the kind of thing that ideally should be taught in schools. But
Oh,
I
yes.
think neither me nor my friends or my schoolmates,
Yeah.
we were never taught these things growing up, and the
Yeah.
little bit that we did learn,
Very
it was
true.
either perhaps from family or
Yeah.
mostly I would say from watching movies, and especially Hollywood movies and TV series, those romantic comedies
Right.
and stuff.
And
So I think we learned, we picked up.
now you have the teachings given in the suttas. You see?
Yeah.
So if you go to Dhamma school, that is why we need to teach the suttas. You find that there's so many of these wonderful qualities. And it's not just Abhidhamma and it's not just meditation, but also social skills, which are given in the teachings for lay people, especially in the Anguttara Nikaya. All right. So the idea here is to communicate with people to make them feel a great sense of self-worth, that you accept them just as they are and they feel happy to be in your presence. Now we begin to learn this, and we begin to know how important this is as we age, but it's too late then, see, because we are already very old and our friends are disappearing one by one, Like recently I went back to Malacca, 2 very dear friends, both husband and wife are in hospital, very sick, and so on. So when when I went to see them, they're so happy. And this friend of mine, my mother took care of her when she was very young as a baby. So she was so happy. She went home and told her children, and children phoned back and said, my mother was so happy. She repeated 10 times that you came and visit her. So the idea is how do we make people happy? How do you make people happy? All right. Not just by entertaining them, by the way. Of course, you can tell them stories and they laugh and they're very happy and they say, oh, you're a good teacher. But then you don't really know what to do, So yes, tell them stories. At the same time, give them teachings, guide them. And sooner or later, you have to teach them how they must depend on themselves, how they can and must build up this inner peace inside them. How do they cultivate this peace to guarantee the teaching is not lost and they are happy in themselves and they become sources of joy and happiness to others also. So we're all like mirrors looking to each other, so to speak. Something like that, okay?
Okay. Thank you.
All right, yes. Any other question? Oh, yeah, 5 more minutes. Well, a few people.
So, brother,
All right, yes.
sorry.
Go on, go on.
Okay, so no, I was just saying, so so as I understand what you said, so it's more to do with like it's more of a heart kind of a thing, like how you connect with others,
Yes.
and at the same time sharing your peace, but not just that, but also
Mm.
coming from a dharma point of view, like
Yes.
to make somebody feel respected or feel happy
Yeah.
or comfortable around you, and
Yes.
then
Yeah.
you share something that is useful for that person as well,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, but it's not that easy, because we all have our conditionings and we have our fears. So it's something we learn. So even as you do this, you begin to learn to discover yourself and you strengthen yourself. And there is the advantage of impermanence. Time is a great teacher. Time will help you along as you build up this quality inside you. So don't feel that you can't do it. Sooner or later, you will learn this. Okay, especially for young people. That's why we teach Dhamma in Sunday schools. Teach them young, so they build themselves up that way. All right. Any other question?
Brother Piya, Vichu here.
Yes, Kichu.
Yeah, so my question relates to the 9 types of the Buddha's teaching.
Yes.
And I'm just curious, was this structure or framework something that existed during the Buddha's time, or it came about only after his passing?
It came, I think, in the later period. Imagine the Buddha starts off year one, not many teachings.
Yeah.
But although I say not many teachings, we are talking about a teacher who talks every day. See, so that there is a lot of teaching, but they were not recorded. See, there were the 5 monks. Yes, I mean the 5 monks were taught many things, and many of these things were forgotten also because those 5 monks were very old, and many of the teachings were not transmitted unless someone asked the Buddha to repeat some of those teachings. So we do get some hints of the early years. We do have records of those. So now to answer your question, no, the 9 categories are not there all the time. They started growing as the Buddha taught.
Yeah.
And in the early years, the 9 categories are not as we understand them today. They were very formative.
Cool.
Yeah, so you must imagine it's a very dynamic situation.
Yep.
It's growing over time, 45 years, So the final form, of course, would be, let's say, after the first council, perhaps, you get all these fixed 9 categories. But the categories are there in spirit, if you understand. For example, you have those questions, they're there. What happens is these 9 categories are used to sort them out so that it's easier for us to understand the kinds and differences of teachings that exist. Okay, so it grew gradually. In other words,
Right. So while the Buddha used different format to convey his teaching,
yeah.
the structure itself was pretty much formalized only after his passing, isn't it?
I would say that.
Yeah.
The Buddha never planned, never say, okay, I'm going to give a
Exactly.
sutta now, or I'm going to give a gatha now.
Yeah.
It usually depends on the situation. For
Yeah.
example, he's sitting there, the scene opens, the Buddha is sitting peacefully, and then Sariputta is sitting meditating in one corner, and the Buddha says, oh, you see, you look at Sariputta, he's meditating. That's the way you should be doing it. Then you get a verse of uplift, you see. And then another occasion, a layman comes and asks about how to live a happy lay life. So he will go on talking a very long teaching, and you get a Sigala Vada Sutta, for example. All right. And some of the suttas are really humorous. Now, I'm right now working on one of the most, I don't know how to say this, Scholars find this sutta quite difficult, quite almost ribald, almost funny in the odd sense. No, maybe ribald is too strong a word. It's humorous in a very, to a certain extent, in a crude way. You have this wanderer who is very proud. Okay, he claims he can beat the Buddha in debate, and if the Buddha can give one answer, he can give two. The Buddha gives two, he can give four, and so on. He boasts like that. Then the Buddha comes to his hermitage. When he heard the Buddha is coming, he was terrified, and he runs away to another hermitage and he stays there. And then the Buddha was waiting for him, and people were saying, "Hey, come on, the Buddha is waiting for you." And he couldn't get up from his seat. The sutta says he got stuck to his seat. Now you got to imagine, you see, how does a person get stuck to the seat? We're not talking about those cartoons where you put really strong glue. It's not like that. He was terrified that he couldn't get up, you see. So there is this kind of really humorous stories the Buddha is telling. You have the Aganya Sutta, you have the Patika Sutta. They're very similar in their humor. Here, the Buddha is using humor to show how sometimes you can have all sorts of funny beliefs about the origin of the world, about creation, and believing in people who behave like dogs, as a dog ascetic in the Patika Sutta. And this follower admires the dog ascetic. And the Buddha shows how ridiculous this idea is. So the sutta is funny in that way. The Buddha, in a sense, is criticizing all these wrong and foolish beliefs. Okay, so I'm working on this sutta. It's now 36 pages already. It's a lot of commentaries.
What's the name of this sutta again?
Patika Sutta, D24. D24.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you can read that first if you like. There are two versions. The old version from the PTS is not so accurate. The new version is better. Walsh's translation, which is in the green book, that long sayings, yeah?
Yep.
Okay. Now we are slightly past 9:30, but if you have questions, you can still ask. Anyone? Last question, perhaps?
Brother Piya,
Yes.
okay, if somebody else doesn't have a question, then I would ask one.
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, so I read in another sutta, where somebody challenges the Buddha, and I don't remember the name, where he says that when I come to meet the Buddha and I'll question him like that his body will be sweating all over, something like that.
Yes.
So from what I remember of what I read is that towards the end of the sutta, the Buddha actually takes out the robe and shows him that, see, there is no sweat on my body, and the other person actually starts sweating. So is that true? Is that a true account?
Faintly, but I can't remember the exact sutta. Well, I think, whoever discovered this story you told first, we will inform the other, okay? Offhand, I can't remember such a sutta. That the Buddha would take out his should look. I have no sweat.
It seems a little bit out of character for the Buddha, right?
Yeah, that is a bit strange, very Mahayana-like. Yes. But then again,
probably
you can never know. You see, I have to read the sutta in order to tell you, yes, it is so. Let's find out. Let's find out. So whoever discovered the sutta, please inform us. All right.
Okay. If I find it again, I'll share it with you,
please.
Brother.
Sure. Any other last-minute question?
So I have one more question, Brother.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
So
yeah, sure.
Coming back to this first quality, which is the one who knows the Dhamma, right? And it talks about this 9 groups of the Buddha's teaching. And I was just thinking, the Buddha always said that, he teaches only, a handful, like he uses a handful of leaves analogy in terms of what he teaches, but he only teaches what is essential for us to attain liberation. So I'm just wondering, does this quality here, the one who knows the Dhamma, really is supposed to mean that they must know the entire step of the Buddha's teaching, or is this specific?
Very good question. Very good question.
The liberation part.
Now, okay, this is where you look at the sutta, the context. Here, the Buddha is telling the monks. He's saying, as a monk, you must know all these 9 categories, because the lay people are going to ask you questions. The lay people are going to know a lot of these things, especially in the future, like now, you see. The future is now. But the lay people know a lot of all these 9 categories, and they're going to ask the monks. If the monks don't know, well, you could have a big problem, you see. So the Buddha is like preparing the monks, so you better know these things. This is the syllabus for your training. Whereas the 4 leaves, the Buddha is saying that for your practice, for your understanding, all you need to know are the 4 noble truths. He didn't mention 4 noble truths, but if you look at 4 leaves and you look at the predominant teaching in the suttas, the 4 noble truths. So now let me see. I don't think the sutta mentioned 4 leaves either. It just said a handful of leaves. So my guess was must be 4 leaves. I mean, just kind of a guess of faith, you might say, to mean the 4 noble truths. All right. So it's not a number of things. It is more like focus. All right. That's good. Okay. Any other last minute questions? Okay. There's always time, so don't worry. Okay? It is the time for questioning if you have. If not, then we will close here. So, okay, time to close, no? And let us now just sit quietly to reflect. We've come to the end of this study on this very interesting sutta, for especially for lay people, although the subject is a monk. We understand better now our position as lay practitioners, how to strengthen ourselves and also reflect this strength, share this strength with others, with people we know, people we meet. So this is a time to remember this moment we shared together, our dedication to the Dharma. We have gathered together, recited the 3 refuges, 5 precepts. We have done our meditation. We have listened to the Dharma and asked questions. We are at peace. In this wonderful moment, send out your kind thoughts to your loved ones, to yourself first, and to your loved ones, and even people you have difficulty with. Sending the messages of happiness and joy and healing. And finally, we show our gratitude to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha by bowing to the 3 jewels. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi. We bow to the Buddha. Swakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami. We bow down to the Dhamma. Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. We bow down to the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.